What's up, guys? Trex here. We're chilling with some low lighting today. I'm enjoying it, but to the chase, cut to the chase. We're going to be doing a quick analysis of Onic versus Bren, Day 2, Week 8. This is their first game. This is actually going to be my first in-depth analysis video that I'm pre-recording, not doing a live stream. So take it easy on me. If you guys agree with what I'm saying, it's cool. If you guys don't, that is also perfectly fine. You can leave it in the comments. Let me know. I'm always open to talk about these things. And I'm also going to say now, please like and subscribe. I normally don't ask a lot to the end of the video, so we're trying something new. If you guys are new to me, I'm a North American Mobile Legends ShoutCaster. I casted at M4. I've casted in every official North American Moonton tournament for the past year or two. Love to have you guys part of the community, but let's jump right into it. I have already watched these games. So I have a little bit of idea of what happens, but I wanted to kind of go in depth with it, right?
Yeah, again,
we're gonna turn
he's
down
still
the
going.
volume a
Oh,
little
he's
bit.
still going.
He's still going.
So basically, Onic picks up the Valentina first, which is pretty typical, right? Valentina works very well up front, especially as a first pick. Arlott was open, Fredwin was open, but Onic decides to play it safe. I mean, not pick up the Arlott, not pick up something that's just the XP lane. They want to try to control mid here, and the Valentina does that well. It has good mobility, it has good wave clear, it has good utility, it has a lot of options, and it fits into just about any composition you want to build. On the other hand, Bren decides to fire back with the Fredrin, which is flexible. It can be jungle, it can be EXP, but here's the problem. Here's the first issue I feel like that Bren does is when you pick up the Fredrin up front, sometimes you don't want to pick up an EXP laner right along with it. They decide to go for the Arlott, which immediately shows their hand. Now we know, okay, this Fredrin is definitely jungle. There's no really flexing with it, right? I think the Arlott's a good pick. I think either of them could have been a good pick, but picking them both up front like that kind of shows a little bit too much up front of your draft. Yes, you get two strong picks, but still, they're now pigeonholing themselves into something very serious. Then, here's the next big mistake I feel like on the side of Bren. They pick up the Farza, right? Not only do they pick up the Farza, they pick it into the Grok and the Claude and the Valentina, right? And I'm not saying like you don't want to do this, but I just feel like you picked it up into a the Grok can counter it. The Claude can dance away from the Feathered Airstrike, can go in if you want to. Not only that, but the Valentina also can steal the Feathered Airstrike. So I just feel like all three of these heroes play well against the Farza, and they decide to, I mean, they quick pick it, honestly. They don't take a lot of time. It's like they immediately want the Farza. So I think that's kind of the first mistake here in the first draft. There's just a lot of things that can deal with the Farza, and yeah, so now your mid lane is already feeling a little bit weak. Onic, on the other hand, decides to go for the Melissa ban. I think they really hone in to the gold lane here, if I recall, as Bren decides to hone into EXP lane. So yeah, they take out the carry, they take out the Melissa. Bren decides to take out the Trizla, which has been kind of a hot pick for Ryota overall. It can work. It's another decent counter to go into few here with the penalty zone. Also kind of deal with the Fredrin. So yeah, it's a decent ban on the side of Bren. Onic, on the other hand, just want to try to give Nets the best game they can, so they get rid of the Melissa, which is a super strong pick right now. Melissa is probably one of the best gold laners in the game, honestly. Currently, it's just such a hot pick overseas in Indonesia, such a hot pick overseas in PH. The only place it has, I mean, it's still trending here in NA, but it's not as prioed, I would say. Now, Ogwin goes for the Lolita here, which again is good, I think, for the to deal with the Claude in a sense, but also you're giving over another very strong ultimate to the Valentina, and you're also, I feel like the Numenon Blast can be stopped pretty well by Kekadu, and then Onic, what they do here is actually pretty clutch, right? Like, what they end up picking here, here I think is where we see the big hitter. It's we flex this Grok into the EXP lane, which should do well against Flapteezy here. because you get the passive, a little less CC. As long as you stick close to your walls, you might not get hit by that final hit, right? By that ultimate from the R-Lot. Not only that, but we bring even more to deal with Farza and even more to deal with Ogwin. I mean, even more to deal with the Roam, right? So the lead is going to have a tough time getting those Numenon Blast down because you have the Tyrant's Revenge. You also have the Wild Charge. And now you even have the Paquito with the Knockout Strike. You also have a lot of mobility in the mid lane here for the side of Onic. A lot of aggression. You have so many heroes that can close the distance. Too few during that Feathered Airstrike. The only real people you have to worry about here are Flap Teasy on the R-Lot and Kyle Teasy on the Fredrin. But overall, you just have you've essentially nullified one of the major damage dealers of the side of Bren. You've made few have a horrible game here or have a really tough game. You're just putting that out there. And I think we don't see Paquito jungle a whole lot, but it works out so great here, especially during mid-game time. They're forced to pick a gold laner here. Can't remember exactly what they end up picking. Super Marco's got to pick something up. They pick up the Leslie. So Brody's open. Brody is open. Beatrix is open. I think some people could debate this pick right here might have been a throw. Maybe we're so comfortable in first position, we're going to try something different in the gold lane. But I don't think it was a good pick at all. I think it was kind of a big whiff here. Yes, I guess it can protect. You can protect yourself against a possible dive from the Kufra, maybe against the possible engage from certain heroes from the Paquito, right? But Beatrix has a dash. I think you could have kind of done a similar thing, right? On the offlaners. Now, first turtle is going to come in here. Ryota tries to get a nice knock-up. Ogwin pushes him back, and this is like the first actually mistake of Onic here, right? Kakadu is a little bit low health here, right? And instead of disengaging, he tries to force in, but he doesn't have level 4 yet. He's about 75% health and just immediately gets melted down. Prince does get a really nice Numenon Blast here, but still, the side of Onic is just too low. They're able to take out few, which is big, but Sensui takes a death, which is bad for Onic. But somehow they're still able to turn this game around, right? Okay, so I think this is possibly like one of the first kind of mistakes by the side of Bren. They get the kill onto Sensui. They are pretty low, and Sensui's death counter isn't too high. But I think maybe they should have just went straight for turtle and tried to take this here. They could have, I guess they're a little scared of possible engages. They don't have complete vision. But Fuse back on the map. Kyle Teasy decides to go for purple instead. And I think maybe they could have taken turtle there if they would have focused on it. But they're being careful, right? They're taking the chance. Kyle Teasy can still come back and contest for it. So it's okay. Kakadu gets another knockup though. Ogwin force it back off, and Sensui able to take that. So they lose first opportunity there, right? They lose a little bit of an opportunity there. Bren does have gold lead, but because they weren't able to get that, they don't snowball too much. Now, where's the big turnaround here, right? So we're still kind of waiting for Sensui to get online. He just gets tough boots in. He needs to get some of those first items locked in. Sensui actually builds a little different than your normal Paquito. He goes tanky here, and Kakadu is on point a lot of this game. Kakadu and Super Friends, like their combinations here, they combo up so many times and make so many great plays happen. Honestly, Kakadu, Sensui, and Super Friends throughout this game really rotate as a unit. I feel like a lot focuses on their mid in this game, and a lot focuses on how these three rotate around the map. And because they have Ryota on the bot lane, he's pretty safe. He's bulky. They know they can kind of stalemate. His goal is just to make sure that Flapteasy doesn't take tower too early, and Sensui making big plays happen. And like I said, right when he gets those first items locked in, he's going to start making big plays happen. He's going to start doing a good amount of damage. And I think this is kind of the weakness of picking up that Leslie, right? She's squishy in the early game. She doesn't have a lot of escapability. She gets caught half health there. No vision on the Sensui.
And Sensui was one of the players,
which is big, because Nets, if he has the advantage here, he's a major point in this game, right? He's a very pivotal member, and as long as your gold laner can do well, it's going to be huge. And the problem is Super Marco being on this Leslie, you're very late game. You don't have a super big mid-game spike, and taking a death this early is bad. It slows you down so much. It slows the advantage that you have down so much. And Bren did start well, but losing that in the gold lane this early is kind of big. Now, once again, Kekadu, Super Friend, Sensui, moving as a unit, trying to make plays happen on the map. To where as we look at Bren, they're a bit more split up, but I think when you have this Paquito, when you have the heavy setup, potential that you do with Onic, it's how you want to play, right? Now this is a huge play. Ryota, I didn't notice this first time I watched it. Flapteezy actually accidentally dashes into this, which is kind of a big whiff by him, right? He dashes into that. Kekadu comes in with a huge flicker combo, and then Super Friends with the Numenon Blast. Yes, they don't get any kills here, but we're already starting to see the huge potential from Onyx combinations here. The type of plays that they can make in this. And Sensui waiting out in this bush once again, getting a lot of damage onto Ogwin. He's playing the Paquito very well. He knows when to sit in a bush. He knows when to not. He knows when to move. He knows when to try to get ambushes, right? Sensui kind of builds a little interesting here, right? He picks up the mallet first. Or no, he picks up, I want to say he picked up mallet first, or the molten core first, then mallet for just a little bit of damage. Just enough damage to be able to get those kills onto Super Marco in the gold lane. And then he starts going into brute force breastplate, right? But just that mallet gives him a little bit of penetration, gives him it's a very nice item to pick up early if you just need a little bit of damage. And then Sensui starts to go into more of a much more tank build here. He doesn't really go for full damage Paquito or anything like that, or even hybrid damage Paquito. So it's an interesting play. And it lets him do enough damage, but also now he's bulky enough to where Flapteezy isn't going to bully him. Other people aren't going to bully him, and he's already starting to be aggressive. Look at him waiting. And this is what they start to do regularly. Just take our jungle, hang out, wait for plays to happen. They don't try to overpush anything. Now, interesting thing to point out here, right? Sensui had vision. He had vision on Ogwin. Ogwin didn't know he was there. And now look at him in this top side. He's going to try to make a play on a Super Marco here, right? And they know the play's happening. Conceal comes in. They know Ogwin's out of position. And they know there's possibility. Yes, they're not able to make it, but it's those little things. He gets that beautiful position at the orange buff, gets vision from Ogwin rotating down and tries to come up. And yes, they don't make the play happen, but it's those small nuances that we have to watch for. Something else that's interesting with Super Friends, right? He doesn't build clock. He goes to, I want to say he goes Lightning Truncheon and then Book. And then he goes to Glowing Wand. So it's one of the reasons why we don't see. It's one of the reasons why I think like early on we didn't see him get any super big kills, and is why his damage isn't super high, right? We're at the 8-minute mark though, and I think at this point Onic knows like, all right, our power spike's starting to fall back a little bit. We still want to continue to take this slow. We don't want to get too crazy. Few finally decides to drop the feathered airstrike though, but once again, Few cannot. Like, there's just so many things to do with Few, and it's again why I think the Farza pick was kind of wasn't the greatest here. So no, Super Friends picks up Book first, then goes into Lightning Truncheon, and never picks up Clock, right? Which I think is a slightly slower build, but the cooldown you get from Book, you're able to take more skills. It makes you a bit more utility, makes you a bit faster, being able to use your skills more.
Barely gets away here. The tier 1 finally falls topside, a lot committed. So Bren now getting that first turn.
Now, this is what I was talking about to where like earlier with the 8-minute mark, Onic kind of knows their spikes a little bit over. They know that Bren have a little bit of an advantage now in some of these team fights. So again, they're not trying to take them, but instead they're using Sensui. They know they've missed their opportunity to like make big ganks happen in the off lane. Bren is grouping up a bit more. Marco's moving down to the bot side. So now instead of like forcing fights, they're using Sensui to kind of split push, and they're just protecting their members. They don't want to take too much deaths. It's not like they're way behind. It's only a few hundred gold, but still they don't want to force fights. And instead, as long as they don't force fights, they know they have the mobility of Sensui with the passive and everything that they can split push, right? They've taken a lot of towers, and here comes a conceal play. Sensui immediately locking onto Few. They know that's the issue. If they can zone him away, it's huge. Ryota comes in, and this is the combinations. The Grok was so clutch. And again, the Farza pick into it all was not great. Onic just picked this great dive combination that I think completely nullify what Bren brought here. And Super Marco on the Leslie is just like the final thing that really kind of messes them up, right? Because again, it's not a very mobile marksman. If it wants to get free hits in, if it wants to do this thing, it's got to be there. Yes, you have the first skill where you can get some speed up, and you have the second skill. But the second skill happens after the dive, right? After that first bit of damage. You can't dash before that. I think it's why the Leslie just has never really been the greatest marksman, right? It had its small moments there. It's had its small moments of shine, but never anything big. Never for a long time. And from here, like literally in a matter of what? A matter of one big team fight, we went from a negative 200 gold deficit on Onic to just taking off 3-4K in a matter of a minute and a half. They completely control the map at this point. The mobility, the dive, I mean, there's just, it just feels like at this point, like there's nothing that Bren can really do because their composition is just completely destroyed by this. And once again, it's Sensui, Kekidu, Super Friends moving as a unit. Now that we're back into a lead, and now that now that we feel like we can take these fights, we're back to our original composition of Sensui, Kekidu, Super Friends. For a second there during the 8-minute mark, Sensui was moving off himself, split pushing, so they always know they can do that. But when we have the advantage, we come together, we stick together. So Lord coming in, they don't sync top wave, but they don't exactly need it. Their main goal was take that mid tower and then try to get at least one inhibitor out of this. Lord at bottom, we bring all 5 into the mid. Keep our eyes on Nets here. He's hanging out on the backside a little bit. He's waiting for a moment to possibly come in. They get a knock-up. Next decides to make a possible play, get a little bit of chip damage. He still hasn't used the Blazing Duet. He doesn't quite need to yet. And they're not able to get an inhibitor here, but they claim so much ground. They take all the jungle once again. Bren trying to regain a little bit of space here. But they know that Lord's coming on bot side, so Ryota, Super Friends, rest of team can kind of hang out a little bit. As long as we control mid still, we're okay. Nets is 3-0-1. At this point, he's set. And here we go. Look at Prince. Like, Prince coming around the backside here is so huge. Like, even though he doesn't make the play happen, just trying to get that pincer maneuver off, getting vision, he comes in enough. I want to say maybe he got vision on Few there. Maybe he doesn't. But still, the knowledge is there for the team. Keep our eyes on Kekidu. Once he finds Ogwyn and gets that Lolita ultimate, gets that Numen on blast, he's done his job. We're going to come back. We're going to wait for the right time. And here it is. They're trying
to get it out, but now Kyle Teasy is down, and it's Ogwyn to follow. Flap Teasy going to be in trouble.
Like I said, I feel like in this game, it wasn't even really about, like there's not a whole lot, like, in-game fight mechanics to analyze, it mainly just came down to the draft, right? Like, I just feel like Bren really whiffed in draft. Everything that Onic brings just destroys what they have here, and it was a wrap. Like, and there was a small chance there for Bren. They had a little bit of a lead in the beginning. They had a little bit of opportunity to possibly do something big. They got that gold lead, but Onic just played it so well, playing defensively. Even from that laning phase, they never really crossed to the other side of the jungle. They let Bren kind of control map in the early phase as long as they didn't take too many deaths, and they were able to make sure Nets had a great game. Sensui even taking that early game death, almost a slight mistake. I almost want to say that maybe Bren, after getting that kill onto Sensui, like I said, they played it safe. They didn't. They lost that first turtle because they didn't want to take too many chances. They didn't have a whole lot of vision, I guess. But I almost want to say after getting that kill on Sensui, they should have just tried to hit the gas. Maybe even be aggressive. Maybe even try to go into enemy territory. But instead, they played it too safe. They lose out in their slight laning phase advantage of like 1,000 gold. And once it gets into like 8-minute territory, there was just no defense. As long as it was at a stalemate like it was, they couldn't win those team fights, really. I don't think it going against any decent team, there was no way they're going to win those team fights. So that's game 1. I don't think game 2 ends up almost being exactly the same. If you guys want to see game 2, I'll gladly drop it, but I want to keep this first analyst video pretty simple, pretty easy. If you guys like it, let me know. If you want to see some more stuff like this, let me know. I'll definitely record more. Thank you guys. Remember, like, subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I'm out.